Let's just be simple about this. You believe you have a claim here based on the fact that thousands of years ago Jews lived, actually not here, but very close to here, that there is a biblical claim. That's it, isn't it?
That's part of it. I mean, you wouldn't want us to live in places where we don't have any sort of historical claim.
And you think that claim, that ancient historical biblical claim, trumps international law, do you?
I think it's the basis of international law.
The basis of
international
the Bible
law,
is the basis of international law.
The basis of international law of the Decision League of Nations, supported also by His Majesty's government in 1917 in the Balfour Declaration, recognized that historical reality. They looked around the world and they couldn't see where any other place in the world, Russia, England, France, America, where Jews belong, except in the land of Israel.
Israel was created in 1948. Let me refer you
Israel as the modern political state was created in 1948.
Yes. Israel was created in 1948.
Israel was created.
Let me refer you to the Fourth Geneva Convention, which Israel ratified, as you well know, in 1951. And it states in Article 49 that an occupying power shall not deport or transfer part of its own civilian population into territory it occupies.
Right. And
that is the international law that governs this place, which makes this settlement illegal.
And if you bear me with just a second, I'll tell you how you're completely wrong. Because that contract, that Geneva Conference, was made between high contracting parties. There was no Palestine. There was an illegal occupation of this area by Jordan as a result of the 1948 war, which was a war of aggression launched by Arabs against Israel, against the United Nations resolutions. And therefore, the Geneva Conference, that specific paragraph, has nothing to do with me, my family, my friends and neighbors living here at Shiloh.
You know that international jurists across the world disagree with what you've just said. You know that.
I know that they're wrong.
You've just cited to me UN Security Council resolutions. Let me cite to you, there's a heap of them, but let me just pick
one. Have no...
UN Security Council Resolution 465, which in March 1980 specifically said that the Fourth Geneva Convention, which we've just discussed, is applicable to Arab territories occupied by Israel since 67. All measures taken by Israel since 67 to change the demographic character or status of those lands have no legal validity. That was a UN Security Council resolution.
Before 1947, there were Jews living here in these areas.
There were no Jews living here.
There were Jews living before 1947.
There were no Jews living in Shiloh, this modern settlement
in Hebron,
Shiloh. There were
in
no
Nablus,
Jews here.
in the lower Jordan Valley,
in
other places. We have a church that was discovered.
Were there Jews on this piece of land that we're sitting in?
Yes. Yes.
No, there weren't. You just told me the only evidence you have from more than 2,000 years ago is from a hill over there of Jews living thousands of years ago on this land.
The Jewish prophets, princes, priests, and kings lived all through this area. We have archaeological evidence. We have names inscribed in ancient Hebrew script. We have remains here of bowls that were cracked open because they were used for sacrificial worship and therefore could not be used again. We have no doubt that there were Jews living here, loving here, and working here.
Mr. Medad, where were you born?
I happened to be born in Bronx in New York, grew up in Queens, and came here in 1970.
So you have no connection with this land in terms of your immediate family ancestors whatsoever?
Well, I would disagree with you. My parents are buried here. And let
me stop you. I think we've established where you were born, and we know that your parents were in America, and you were born in America. I just put it to you that there are hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of Palestinian families who are immediately connected to this area, this land. We can look around and see many Palestinian villages which have been here for many hundreds of years. That is the connection to the land.
Well, of course, they came here as a result of a conquest in 638, and if we will be able to meet in 1,000 years, I can tell you that myself and my family have also been living here over 1,000 years. This has nothing to do with the question. The question is that I'm not saying to the Arabs they have to leave. They belong here because they're indigenous population. I am also indigenous population, and the only reason I wasn't here for 1,000 years is because first the Romans conquered Jerusalem and threw me out of the country.
Quite a long time, 1,000 years.
That's true. That's true. It just happens to be that Israel and the Jewish people are one of the more ancient people. So therefore, when I talk about my history, I have to refer to 2,000, 3,000 years of history, and not just of a United Nations resolution of 1947 that was only 60 years ago.
You were born in America, and I'm interested because I just wonder whether you subscribe to the American dictum that all men, all women are created equal.
Absolutely, and they also have equal responsibilities.
Do you believe the Palestinians who live in this area
Should have full
equality, are treated as equal human beings with you, with a Jewish settler living in Shiloh?
They deserve the equal responsibility.
You're not answering
as a
my
human
question.
Because the second part of the answer is there are certain discrimination that happens, 95% of which happens because of the security situation. When Arabs are stopped at roadblocks, when they are searched, when it's very difficult to get to work, when sometimes they can't ride the roads, all these issues evolve from their mistaken belief that violence and terror will kick Jews out of this area in Shiloh, and later on out of Jerusalem and other places.
Let's just be specific. If you or any Israeli citizen living in the West Bank is charged with an offense that allegedly took place inside the West Bank, you would be dealt with by the Israeli civil courts, would you not?
Yes.
Yes. Now, a Palestinian would be prosecuted under an entirely different legal system, a system born out of occupation, yes?
Because international law says so.
Let's just be clear. That is the case, isn't it? That there will be an entirely different legal process for a Palestinian living on the very same land that you live on.
It depends. There are Jews, for example, who are in detention.
Well, no, it doesn't depend. It's quite simple. The Israeli citizens living here are dealt with under the Israeli civil code and civil courts.
Not 100%. This past summer, over the past few months, we've had Jews taken into detention by the military commander, and he had 18 boys have been exiled from their homes because of suspicions that violence would take place against Arabs who were picking olives, and exactly the same way the Palestinians are.
But I'm talking about court processes, and there is an entirely different court process. And let me just quote to you the words of B'Tselem, the Israeli human rights organization.
A radical left-wing organization.
It's an Israeli organization run by Israelis, which is steeped in the Israeli law, and they concluded last year, quote, "The situation in the territories violates the principle of equality before the law, and the principle according to which persons living in the same territory should be subject to the same system of laws. In a single occupied territory, Israel is operating a system of separation with discrimination by law, and it is doubtful," they conclude, "that there is any comparable system that has existed since the end of apartheid in South Africa."
Well, I completely disagree with their legal opinion, with their philosophy. As I said, they're a radical left-wing, extreme fanatical group that has nothing to do with human rights. It all has all to do with getting Jews out of their homeland.
What do you think it does to you? I'm talking personally now. To you, your children, your grandchildren. I believe you've got grandchildren now.
Yes.
What do you think it does to you living in what, not just B'Tselem,